Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle Desrochers and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of the Outer Realm. We're broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM from New Orleans. We're fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey since the very beginning. And that's like probably about 4 years worth of beginning. So we thank you, Folgers. Amelia and I appreciate you so much. And it just wouldn't be the same without you. Also, big thank you to Dr. Snick, a.k.a. Justin Snicker, the sonic surgeon, for his contribution of his time, his music, and his voice for our intro that you just heard. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music all year round. Yes. And it's available on any of your favorite music streaming platforms. So check him out. Also, big thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind the banners and logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Also specializes in the horror genre. And he's quite busy this time of year doing phenomenal commission pieces as well. So tonight, we welcome Ryan Pitterson, the author of The Final Nephilim and The Judgement of the Nephilim. Basically, we're going to be covering things like who are the main characters, of the Old and New Testaments. He's going to answer a lot of questions about some of this stuff. And are these people still around? Maybe just role-playing, heads of government, things like that. I don't know. But in order to participate, you guys are going to have to come into, our regular chat rooms. You know the drill, right? You know the drill. And we're going to wait for our guest to come up. We're going to play his documentary trailer. And, it's going to be really interesting. I've watched the documentary. It's fabulous. He's extremely knowledgeable and very versed. He's very versed. I don't think I've ever seen it. Well, I mean, I have periodically, but he can quote scriptures and stuff like bam, bam, bam. And that's kind of cool because I can't quote one. No. So anyway, but people are chiming in. Look who's like first on the docket tonight. Hey,
yeah,
makes it. Marquetti, hello, hello. Tamara, hello. Yeah, everybody's going to slowly start chiming in. It's going to be good. I see like the different chat rooms are filling up slowly, so that will be good. And looking forward to having him on. Be very cool. So he's got this very melodic type of voice. It's just very relaxing and soothing.
Oh, my dad was like that.
I like it.
My father's was like just zen. He was always calm and talking like this, and it didn't matter if he was in a hurry.
I love it.
Just always talk like this, and it's like, even if he was angry, he never raised his voice.
Right. Ever. I like that. Hey, Susan.
Yeah, hey, I didn't take after him. I took after my mom.
I know. I think that's, I don't know.
I look like him, but that's where it stops.
Yeah. You end up being just like,
I'm the only child out of 5 that looks like him. But the rest look like my mom. But yeah, that voice is soothing. I miss that voice.
Yeah. I like the calm. My daughter is very funny because she talks very low and calm, but you can tell when she's on a professional call or if she's agitated because I can be pretty robust in my speech, which comes from a lot of public speaking, I guess.
Yes.
But she's very, very quiet and she's very tiny. And all of a sudden from the other room, you hear, I was like, oh, Peanuts Matt.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's just this very big voice that comes out of this little teensy little person.
Yeah, it's hard to believe because she's so tiny.
She
Actually,
is really tiny.
Sabrina's soft spoken too. I call her Mumbles because I can never understand what
It's the
she's saying.
same. It's the
Yeah, I'm like
same. Mom
Mumbles.
needs to have her hearing checked. No, you just need to speak the hell up.
No, I think it's because we're so loud. They're
Yeah.
quiet.
It's a
I think that's
generation, I
why.
think.
I don't know.
I
My
really
mother
think
was
it's a
loud.
generation. I'm saying so.
My mother was loud. My brothers are soft
My mom
spoken. Not
too.
my youngest brother. Sorry, Fernando. You're not soft spoken.
Yeah.
But the other two, yeah.
Whatever. So I know we're just waiting on our guests while we're
Easy now,
chatting.
Wayne.
So I mean, we've all heard of the Nephilim or Nephilim, as he calls them. Pretty much giants. We've talked a lot about giants on the show in the last probably handful of months. They just seem to be
Yeah.
coming up more and more. There's discoveries, and not just like they're finding giants, but they're essentially just finding a lot of, I guess ancient artifacts, or finding locations are surfacing that just seem like out of place with respects to size and things along those lines. And there's a lot of research going into this, but we don't really think about it with respects to going back to biblical times. But when you think about it, David and Goliath, there's one.
Yeah, and
So
Tamara brought up a point last week. I believe it was Tamara because she always has like right at the tip of her head. She's incredible. About how the Marines have come back from wars and have sightings, but they always
yes,
get
I've read
dismissed
that.
as PTSD. So it's easily dismissed, which is terrible because they probably really are seeing something.
Well, out in the Middle East, especially out that way, there have been sightings, and I
Easy to
remember
hide.
reading about them. I think they actually took one down.
Yeah, it's very
It was
easy.
very
Yes,
aggressive,
yes,
apparently.
yes.
But I mean, was it aggressive, or were they just terrified and started shooting and asked questions later?
I don't know, but I think if you put yourself in their position, not that you ever really, really fully could, but put yourself in their position where they're fighting a war and all of a sudden, this giant with some beans comes out of the desert sand. Like, I can understand why people would be skeptical and say it's PTSD, it's stress, and why they would start shooting because it's something they don't know what it is. They're like, what the hell, right? Most people in the Marines they're not studying about Nephilim and
Well, no, because I mean, Nephilim is pretty much a Christian term. I think it's the only place I've technically seen it. I mean, otherwise they just basically call them what they are, giants.
yeah.
I see right here. Yeah. Reports of red giants eating soldiers. See,
Like red, like they're red skinned.
red skin, red hair. What is it exactly?
I
And
don't
where?
know.
Do you remember, Tamara, where that was?
Hmm.
And when? Most importantly, when would be good? When and
Well,
where?
it's not like we're ever lacking in the WAR department. I don't want to say words that are going to get flagged, especially at a time like this.
Yeah, I'm with
So
Z-Sun on that.
anyways,
What about the friendly giant? Yeah, I liked him.
like I said, this one could have been carrying beans, but they didn't see it.
Yeah. I don't know, man. All I know is that we're coming, I think, to a point in time where the earth is giving up, or the planet is giving up her secrets. With the technology we have, like such as LiDAR, they're able to look through large, dense forest canopies. They're able to look, through landscapes that have long since been buried over, and they're finding these places.
Well, they could see long before they told us they could.
I
So
completely agree with you. And then you're look about all these mounds that are out there, serpent mounds and such. There's some of them, like I know in upstate New York, because a friend of mine studied mounds, and they're not allowed to touch them. They're not allowed to do anything with them. And there are museums that actually show giants in the museum. So they do definitely discuss them, right? So the definition, of course, of the Nephilim are the fallen ones, the watchers. Logic says yes, giants. But I think, Ryan will get into where do they all come from? What happened? Why? 10
That's a
years
whole
ago,
different war.
red-haired giants. But you see, it's the area again. You're looking, let's think back, even when you're talking about the times of even in Iran. I don't want to get into flagging a bunch of names on YouTube, but even the dictator at the time that they took down, or Iraq, sorry, he was very active in archaeology. Like, he was very interested in finding ancient sites. Maybe he wanted to see, wealth. Who knows? I'm sure there was something attached to it, but apparently had a very healthy interest. Unlike a lot of countries that are a little bit, a lot of these type of countries. And again, I don't want to get political.
No,
where
he
they
could have
want
just been
to
a history
they
buff.
want to destroy the past. They don't necessarily want to bring it to the forefront and go against maybe some of the teaching or upbringing that may have, like their own traditions. Right. So I think that's pretty cool, but it falls in and around this area. Right. Friend or foe.
Yeah. Because during wartime, all you were looking for is friend or foe. Exactly. And if something comes at you that large, you're going to shoot, especially if you've been there for a long time. I mean, if you pay attention, if you've ever seen Deliver Us from Evil, the story that Ralph Sarchi told about how he was a homicide detective, and you see the story of the Marines that come back, and they come back possessed.
Right.
They opened up a cave they weren't supposed to be in, and they were looking for someone else who was sacrificed there. So when you see that, you can understand that why wouldn't this be a possibility? And why is it? Because these lands are so ancient. That's why. They're so ancient. That's why there's ancient beings there. But don't think that they can't travel. So,
well, especially when you have that kind of a wide step.
that, and I mean, like demonic spirits and things like that, they travel.
Well, dimensionally speaking, as well.
There's a portal. There's portals. So, I think about, I remember I told you about the Pope's exorcist, how he says 200 were sent to earth to be punished, and they had one, and then 199 were to be found. Now that's Father Gabriel and more. Now that didn't mean they all went to the United States. That meant it's an international thing, and where there are one, there are many. If you haven't learned that from us, you haven't been listening to the show.
Well, I mean, I think anybody, you've even heard Lorraine Warren talk about Legion. You've heard about many exorcists talk about Legion as well. Any hardcore, I think, researchers, there's just you're not going to have just one. I don't think these guys are going to do a lot of the dirty work themselves, so to speak. But again, we're making a lot of assumptions as to how the whole system works. Unfortunately, I think we know very, very little about how it all works. I mean, it's warfare any way you look at it. And I think with that being said, Ryan will be, instrumental in talking about that part of it. This just so everybody knows as well, a lot of this is going to come from the biblical part of all of this, because essentially this is what people think the Nephilim are. They are fallen angels that procreated, fallen angels who came and procreated with the daughters of man, as they say, and they had these offspring called Nephilim, these giants. So be prepared. This is what this is essentially going to be about. And it's going to be, a lot of scriptures and things of that nature, but it's
There'll be a lot of
fascinating.
controversy with it too, because scripture from which book, scripture from which Bible.
Mm.
So
Well,
everybody's entitled to their own opinions and thoughts.
yeah. Well, I mean, it stems. It's a big Christian thing. So, of course, this is the standpoint or the way you have to come from it. But it's always been fascinating to me, only because of the fact that you do have these little questions. Well, how can that happen? Right, being one
Yeah.
of them. How could that happen for real? It's just like, well, okay,
Yeah.
good point. Or things, what
I'm
do we
always
look?
open to anything listening wise. Like I'm always open.
Everything to me is knowledge. It's always a learning experience. There are people who spend a lot of time researching this, this sort of thing for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of books written on this sort of thing. But when somebody takes the time to spend years and years researching and writing about it and talking about it, I'm always curious to see what they have to say, because it's a constant evolution of knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and we are still waiting. Just saying, we are still waiting. I'm really hoping he can connect. Otherwise,
I
people
think
were
he
having
would
a
have.
Q&A.
Yeah, he would have contacted you if he couldn't.
I would think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would think so. Hey, Chris.
Hi,
I've got his
Chris. Don't
agent on it.
worry.
I've got his agent on it. We'll see. But
Yeah.
yeah. But I think Chris, if Ryan makes it, which I hope he will, I think this will be right up your alley. This is
I agree.
probably the show you've been waiting for, without me giving it all away. So, Wayne.
Wayne says, from what I understand through my research on the fallen ones, I am understanding that they can take on the image of anything they wish. He's continuing it. We'll wait for that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree.
Your quiche. Okay, I'm coming.
God.
I'll
But
eat anything. Yeah.
I think if you are an interdimensional or dimensional being, which is
Yeah.
what the fallen ones they are, so they're angels, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not of this place, but they are a creation nonetheless. So with that being said, we are to assume that they can they shapeshift, or can they project anything that they want us to see? I believe that they absolutely can. So, and then Wayne goes on to say,
The first one of these fallen ones had attributes of both the human female and the fallen angel. What? Sorry, I missed something.
okay, the
Both the
first one,
human
the fallen
female.
ones, had attributes of both the mother, being the human female, and the
Yeah.
fallen angelic
Angelic
beings.
beings. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree on that as well. So well, I mean, I don't know. When you look, we've showed pictures before, okay, of what real archangels are supposed to look like. Okay, I'm going to look. Bear with me, okay? Because
There's a lot of controversy.
I want to see how this is a thing. Hold on, okay. Because not everybody knows. Not everybody knows. Apparently, we have our own visions, right? But apparently, they can be pretty not what you think.
Yeah, I see a lot of blonde archangels, and the only one who's blonde to me is Haniel.
Okay, hold on. All right. Okay, where did this guy go? Come on now. I completely lost it. Okay, so let me just come in. I'm going to screen share. Okay, 1 minute. I'm going to stop this screen because I'm going to present another one. Okay. And this is what apparently I'll have to do it in another one now. Bear with me.
It's okay. Someone in my house just made coffee, and I'm like,
You're smelling it? That's hard. It's hard, isn't it? Okay. Let me just get up another screen here so I can actually share. Okay, hold on. Because when you see this, it makes you wonder how the heck does one look like this? Okay, 1 minute. Okay, no, not what I want. I and this is apparently a description. I'm just going to try to go through different ones here. Okay, here's a good one. Okay, here we go.
Probably is Folgers coffee, Wayne.
Okay, hold on. 1 minute. 1 minute. Bam, bam, bam. Okay, here we go. So this guy right here, this is apparently what,
Funny kind of looks alien, doesn't he?
right? Like, I mean, I'm just kind of wondering, how do we get giants out of this? See, this is what apparently
Maybe
real archangels look like.
Their height,
The biblical
and
ones.
yeah, their
This isn't-
height, and see, to me that reminds me of
eyes?
stuff that you see on Arrival, the film Arrival. They look like giant octopuses, like
They look like a big
octopi. Sorry,
They look like a big moth. I'm sorry, but
no, I'm saying from the film Arrival, when she goes to communicate with them, and you see them, and they have suction cups on their hands, and they're making they look like them.
Yeah, I mean, when you start getting into some of these,
Okay, the middle one looks like a tarot card, but that
well,
one there,
I think they're just trying to the gist of it is, how do you
Beautiful.
look at me, all the eyes, how do
I would be afraid of that.
Well, yeah, but how do we, when we look at that, and that's apparently what a real archangel looks like, a fallen one.
Fallen angels. Okay. So not
Yeah.
archangels. No, I know not archangels. They wouldn't
Fallen
be
angels.
archangels if they did.
Right. But again, still angel. This is what I caught a picture of angels. It says here, this is one of the, hold on, let me bring it up. I'm not just saying. This is one of the biblical depictions of angels and heavenly beings. This angel in particular, let me see if I can open this up. Okay, visit. Hold on. Let's see what he says. Okay. Is there any information that I can take? Oh, is known as the seraphim. So
because of all the wings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean,
aren't they nasty though?
Most artwork will show them at least with with a body.
Yeah, and they show them in gold, which is hilarious because aren't they nasty?
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, because I'm sure you can hear me right now, but you have a bad reputation.
Okay, so we're just going to come up here. I'm going to stop this one
here. I can read this one. As to the idea, this is Wayne Mallow speaking, as to the idea of being giants, it's possible that it's taken out of context in that these beings are smarter, stronger, and have higher technology. So they would be seen as giants among men. That's possible. Yeah.
Okay, so are we to... Okay, we'll take this in a little bit of a different direction because this looks like it's looking like it might be turning just to be an open mic here.
Ooh, spooky.
So basically then, are we talking maybe, are they a form of another race, ET?
I gotta find the Muppet.
That sort of thing? Are we looking at that perhaps?
Oh, Stone Hobbit, how are you? She said, I'm gonna pull that one a little bit closer to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Stone Hobbit, hello, my darling. Says, my light being came in as a ball of orange energy, then morphed into human form, then morphed into two beings, back into one, and then took on skin texture, shoulders to eyebrows. Oh, so maybe there is a lot to say about how they reflect themselves on to make you comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
the God's guides, etc., often are 10 feet tall. Similar ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. It's a tough one because it's like anything else. Everything, it's hypothetical. We don't really know. We know what's in
Mhm.
the scriptures, but again, when you think about, there's still, I mean, Old Testament, they were still written by man. So when I look at, even in the book of Ezekiel has some of this stuff in there. It's like,
Mm.
you look at the stories of Ezekiel's wheel. I mean, it's full on extraterrestrial experience.
Well, we also presume that the Vatican's got this in their vaults as well.
Well, for sure they do,
Yeah.
including alien technology, alien skull. They've got that. It's already been confessed to. So
That makes sense. So, and once you know energy, you could take on any form, tall, short, wings, hooves. It's just alarming to see what people have seen them as, because those are obviously visions that people have had and drawn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Exactly.
yeah.
So let's hypothetically say that, that we're dealing with Nephilim as giants. A lot of people look at them as, if you go into even a book of demonic dictionary of the demonic, you have entities there that are allegedly the Nephilim. Asmodeus is a big one. They have
And that's the first one that they mention with Father and Lord.
See, well, I mean, if you look
I
at
think
the
that was an
movie,
entertainment value.
yeah,
Yeah.
that could be
Just a little too. I find that, I mean, although in the film they show that he was in life chased by this demonic entity, followed,
right,
ever present.
right.
But
I
yeah,
can't. Yeah, I mean, I think this is the easiest one. He seems to be, and going back into my own experiences and working with families and individuals who have had attachments or who have brought something into the house, he seems to be a popular one for whatever reason. And also, if you go to a place like Rennes-le-Château in the south of
I was
France,
wondering why we know Reno.
right?
I'm like, Nevada? This was going through my head. Okay.
Rennes-le-Château,
Okay.
the demon Asmodeus is right at the front entrance of the church in the chapel in Rennes-le-Château. He's also the same demon that allegedly fooled King Solomon
It makes sense.
and was able to escape by tricking him into giving him his magical ring, which I'm sure is, I'm sure it's a lot of it is metaphor. But it is fascinating how he seems to be the one that surfaces a lot. So let's go through some of the comments.
Oh, I guess until an actual angel arrives and sits us all down to have a wee chat about life and its origins, it's all guesswork. Numerous options.
Exactly. Yeah, right here. Yes.
Yes. And Chris says, I suspect that Goliath was Nephilim. He was a giant.
Exactly. The fellow in the foyer ran the chateau.
In Reno.
Yes. In Reno.
That was funny. I'm like, Nevada has a first of all, Nevada has a church. I thought that was the casino.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. All right. Hold on. I'm just trying to. Okay. Good. I cannot keep communicating. Just trying to figure out. Hoping our guest is okay. I really hope that our guest is okay. So, anyway,
because he was under the weather last week when you got a hold of him. So hopefully he's overcome it.
Yeah, there we go. So it's possible, but he's been very communicative. So I'm really hoping that nothing bad has happened.
Maybe got the wrong time. Maybe got the time wrong. Is he in a different time zone?
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't have everything in front of me, and they don't all tell you, where they're technically from. I'm just trying to see here. But you know what? Again, we'll have to obviously reschedule because we definitely want to share the documentary and share the book and the information with you guys. So
Yeah, you
without
need the
giving it
full 2
all
hours.
away, I know I'll have to just change some stuff up. But
Well,
the f-
guess what's on Netflix now? The Fallen Ones got him. No. No.
so this is more along the lines. I think we're just having an open mic session and we can concentrate on some of this stuff. But there is a good movie on right now.
It's a
Keeping in
documentary.
tune with
Yeah. It's a documentary though. The one with the Warrens you're talking that I told you.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
was on.
yeah.
It's called the Devil on Trial, and it's the Warrens discussing a case in Connecticut. Of course, in Connecticut, y'all are haunted AF in Connecticut.
Yeah.
But I started to I put it on just to see. I always have to have the TV or a radio on in the background.
Right.
That's, you know me, because the voices and the noise and everything and the distractions. That actually keeps me, at a level frequency. So I had it in the back and I looked and I went, let me just catch this trailer. So I watched the trailer and I went, this needs my 100% focused attention, my focus right on this, because this is a documentary. These are pieces and clips of interviews of the Warrens as well. They are sharing, which I don't know how I feel about this part. I don't like when recordings of exorcisms are shared. I don't believe in it. It's against my beliefs. It's against the way I work, the way I feel about something like that. I feel like it never dies. It's that energy trapped on tape and you're releasing it. And it just, for me, it's just wrong.
It's called a bleed through. Even most researchers, when they're listening to that sort of thing, will do it with earbuds or headphones. So it can't bleed out into the atmosphere for that reason. And I have seen it happen where it's come out and people ended up having an issue because they were doing recordings and then just played it out loud. And I think we worked on one of those places in Ohio. If you remember that. Yeah. And that was just like, when I listened to that thing, it was essentially, it sounded huge. It sounded, because it had this long, just big, deep rumbling voice.
Yeah, it makes it, you really get a feel for the size of it.
Well, it was all in air.
Like
you do.
Yeah.
And your spidey senses sort of kick in and go, ooh, that's old.
This is a little
but
different.
It was all in Aramaic too, people. Like it was an ancient, very ancient.
That just adds to the heebie-jeebies. Recordings get to me, but this is a little boy who was possessed, and we'll put those air quotes on it because I haven't seen the entire documentary, so I don't want to speculate or assume anything or put out false information, fake news. I don't want to do that. So but what's different about this is he is a grown man who recalls this. That is not common in possessions, that they recall any of it. He remembers where he first met this. He remembers how he felt the first encounter.
People are not always in a just to back up one quick minute so people are aware, because we can go back to the story of The Exorcist. They're not in a possessed state the entire time, right?
No, but he remembers the state. He remembers things. Not all of it, because I haven't seen it. So I can't.
And we don't want to blow it. We haven't seen it.
No, we haven't seen it either. Like I haven't seen it. I caught the trailer and that was it. And that's when I messaged Michelle. I'm like, oh my God, they're playing the recordings from the actual. I wouldn't say it was an exorcism. What I heard was a deliverance. I don't know if they play the exorcism, but it's interesting. I'm going to tell you, not for children, not for the faint of heart. It's not a slasher film, but there's some serious stuff that's in there.
Do you suggest, because we've done a lot of these. I mean, I spent 20 years doing it, and you and I spent 4 together doing it. Do you recommend? I mean, do you even watch it if you have children at home with the threat of bleed through?
No.
Like
Because
I
that can
feel the
come
threat of,
through. Yeah.
the bleed through.
Yeah.
I feel whether it's coming through the actual recording that was taken and that you're listening to, or if it's bleeding through television. There's a lot of people who believe, and I always say hypothetically because everything's hypothetical in this business, but
Absolutely.
there's a lot of researchers and people that do believe that this stuff can bleed through and just right through your living room. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I worry about that. And I worry about children who get up for water and come towards the stairs and maybe hear things and are, invited, because this gentleman who, I don't know how old he is. He has to be up in age because he was about, I think it was 11 at the time or 13 when he met the
Right.
Warrens. So this is a long time ago.
Right.
And he discusses the
Right.
different steps. He calls them differently to,
Right.
to lead to possession.
Right.
And they do talk about Ouija boards and how they thought that was it. His was an encounter at a home that his sister was buying, and they were there to help clean it out. The family was there to help clean it out, and he was left in the, I will just say this because it's on the trailer.
Yeah.
He was left in the master bedroom. He was asked to sweep the floor, and that's when he was pushed onto the bed. And that's where it all started.
Right.
And he immediately wanted to leave, and he didn't know what it was, but he sensed something when he arrived. They all did. They all said there was something off with that house.
Right.
So think about that. So here we go with another house, Amityville, Harrisville. Here we go with another house, Georgia, and the
There's
funeral home, Connecticut.
Yeah.
Here we go. We're starting this again, and this is something that just hit Netflix in Canada. I'm not sure about the States, but it probably has been in the US
for us. Yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes my paranormal nightmare was here before, or it was in the States before here, and it was supposed to be here.
I remember filming that, and it showed there, and my worst nightmare is the one I think of too. That one was here first. I don't know that I agree with this statement, Chris. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't agree with that statement, Chris.
Yeah.
I think you have to do a little bit more research.
I don't believe that somebody who's grieving and thinking that they're, talking to a loved one because they're tricked into into bringing something in. I don't believe that a small child, because I've worked with many children and families. I don't believe that a small child who thinks they're tricked into being deceived, playing with another child, or having a very benign encounter, basically states that, this is an invitation. An invitation is where an attachment starts when something comes into your house, one way or another. An invite to communicate, perhaps. I mean, some people move right into a space where it's already there, but something along the lines brought this thing in. And if that's what you're talking about, then yes, it starts with an invite of some sort.
Yeah.
However, a request to be possessed, I don't believe that's how it works. This could be maybe a religious belief with some religions. I've worked with many different religious belief systems. I've worked with rabbis, I've worked with the Catholics, I've worked with Christians, I've worked with Buddhists, I've worked with many. So this is a first for me, but yes, we can definitely agree to disagree. No problem. We love you too.
Yeah, no problem.
But that's what this is about. That's what open mic is about. just communicating and bouncing ideas around. And Lorraine partook in a lot of exorcism where she was present. Not where she partook, but where she was present.
I'm not sure if that's the story.
Yeah.
I know what he's talking about. Chris is talking about where they show a little bit. Hi, Alex. They show a little bit about her being in seeing something at the exorcism of a young boy. But I don't know if that's the boy. I can't remember the name. And I don't know if they gave the real name when they did the film.
I'll tell you.
There's so many there's so
There
many
is.
liberties they took in that film, and you can ask the parent family and they will tell you it's not accurate.
Mhm.
So and her family didn't look for them, they looked for the family.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of different stories because they have to make it entertaining. In fact, their real experience was so traumatic they couldn't rate it, so they couldn't tell it.
Mhm.
So anyways, this is a documentary about the family and what they went through.
I'll tell
So
you, I mean, I've met Lorraine a couple times. I've been to her home. They had, um, they had some interesting footage. One was a footage where, um, it happened in Canada.
I'm laughing at Alex.
I
Yeah.
know. I don't even know, Alex. I don't
The
even know
devil
that.
on the devil
But
on trial, because
yeah,
this story is about someone who murdered and the devil made me do it. It's one of those stories.
right,
It's
right,
on Netflix, Alex. It just came out today.
right.
So
25 ago, I called it. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I think he just got, yeah.
time wrong.
Yeah, no, the date that it was
Oh,
tomorrow, yeah.
oh no. Okay.
It's today. So that's okay. We'll have to do it another time. But anyway, the footage that I saw was a man in Canada going back in the 70s.
In Montreal.
Yes, you know the one I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
that's the one they referred
And
to.
he ended up, I believe, killing himself, which was very sad. But they have close-ups of him wearing a white shirt. And when they look at the eyes actually slit and close. And then he starts drooling, like just salivating. And it's all just white drool. And when it hits the shirt, it all goes red.
Mhm.
So I thought, holy crud, man, there's just stuff out there.
They have writing on the inside of his belly as well.
Yes.
That's the one where she saw things and it scared her and it took a piece of her. That was the case she did right before Harrisville.
Yeah.
So it was that one. There you go, Chris. It's not the one
Yeah.
from this documentary. This documentary is involved in murder.
Right.
How someone was influenced or whatever, they're using that plea, but this man was possessed. That I do know. But I don't know anything else because, like I said, I just watched the trailer because this is something, I think it's 90 minutes long. It's something that's going to require full attention because it's interview after interview, clips of the Warrens interviews, and interviews after interview, and evidence after evidence, and trial clips and news clips. So you can't watch this half asleep. This is something that you're going to have to focus when you're watching it. It's
Right.
both paranormal and criminal,
Okay,
which is fits right. It's right my niche, or the way Joe would say niche.
sorry,
Jojo says niche.
okay, I think he's gonna pop on very soon. So
Oh, okay.
yeah. He goes, I'm available. It's like, okay, good. Come on in. Well, we won't have
Okay.
a whole lot of time, but we'll take it a little bit. We'll take it a
Yeah.
little bit longer. So I'll just let
Let me
the
spit in a
producer
drink of
know.
water.
We are going a wee bit longer.
Yeah.
Being late. Okay, just so we can get it all in there. Okay, it's just so we know, and then he's good. But
Will it cut off for SoundCloud though?
no. Oh,
It'll
no,
be
it won't.
okay?
It won't. It's whatever we put on. It'll be fine. Yeah, I just can't. I won't be able to do a full rerun with it ever because we'll be over the 2-hour mark.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, but Clipper. Yes, that is the one.
You give consent, Chris. You're not hearing what Michelle's saying. You're listening, but you're not hearing. I love you, Chris. You give consent to something you don't know. That's the problem. They mimic, and they will. They're tricksters. They'll trick you into it. We're not saying there isn't an invitation. We're saying there is no such. You don't say, I permit you to possess me.
Permission
like
on
that.
some level is the invitation we speak of. somehow inadvertently inviting into your life. You could do that with a voice recorder, by the way. It's not just Ouija boards. It's any sort of request to communicate is pretty much an
Even thoughts.
invitation to bring into your life. And then from that point on, I believe all bets are off.
Even thoughts. How many times have you stupidly said, I would give my SOUL for that?
No, it's true.
That's an invitation. You know it's not, but to them it's clear. It's like, hey, I'm right here. What do you need?
There doesn't have to be any fine print with them.
No.
You know what I mean? So but it's permission is an invite. It's an invite. It's not permission to be possessed. To me, in layman's term, black and white writing is, I give you permission to take possession. That's not the case. It's the case is invitation of coming in. It always starts with an invitation. I mean, Lorraine and I had spoken about this before. Lorraine has been very avid about it. Most researchers, Bishop James Long has talked about it. Reverend Bill Bean has talked about it. He'll be on the show next week. Hopefully he'll be feeling better. It's the same idea. Somehow that invitation to communicate or invitation or challenge, whatever the case may be, those are invites and they're legitimate. But the people who get tricked into it, there are ways to get out of that quite easily. Believe me, I've worked with families and I've done it. You can rescind those invites. We're dealing in a gray area in wording is what I think we're doing. So, but with that being said, I think that we, sorry, I'm just sitting here looking to see, waiting on our guests. Okay. But,
Alex says he's possessed Monday through Friday.
Right.
I think, Alex, you're possessed when you drive by Bar Burrito.
Maybe. So, but yeah, man, I mean, I think it's a really fine line. I think there are things out there that wait and prey on people who are just in a bad way. It's not just, challenging. It's like we talked about this before. It's people who are grieving. It's people who have addictions, people who are depressed, high levels of anxiety. I think just different.
Yeah. I got a big fat fly on my screen again.
Nice. I can see
it. Never fails at this time of year. I see it
buzzing around.
Right?
I know.
Never fails. It's a slow fat.
I'm not frustrated. I'm just saying, I think we have a gray area just in terminology is all.
Yeah. There's a difference between invitation and permission.
Yeah.
You can go for hours explaining that one.
I know. It's a gray area. Permission and invites. Yeah. It's just in the wording. But again, infestation and possession. Possession is the last state of a demonic infestation and oppression. And, it actually doesn't happen often.
No.
But full possession,
a lot less than you think.
Often.
I think Bishop James said that 3% of cases. I'm not quoting him because I don't know if the number is right, but I know it's less than 5%.
Right.
Are actual possessions.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, I'm just waiting here. I've just got the guests going. Okay. I'm just ready. Let him know he's got the link.
He's probably getting his stuff ready.
Yeah. Well, he'll have lost a good hour.
Yeah.
But we'll try to carry it through separately.
Yeah.
And see. But I mean, realistically speaking, I think we're in, and we have been for quite some time, in a day and age where there are things out there, whatever they are, whether they're considered to be demonic, whether they're considered to be, multidimensional, interdimensional, dimensional, whatever the case may be, extraterrestrial, terrestrial. There are beings out there that just wait. They lay in waiting, And I think maybe we need to ask ourselves where they come from.
That's one
Outside
thing
of
that,
religion.
yeah, that's one
Because,
thing that makes me want to read Father Gabriel Morth's book
yeah.
from beginning to end, because we don't know after his story is told in a Hollywood fashion. Let's not forget that, why this thing pursued him as long as it did.
Well, there is that theory, and I know I've mentioned it before, where they do know. They do know who you are. And if you're doing damage out there, they do know. And they can pursue. I mean, let's face it, they don't have limitations when it comes to time or space. They can outweigh
No.
you. They can go your whole life. They could go through family lines. They could go through thousands of years. Let's face it. I was once asked out in an interview, "Do you think you know who you are?" And I was like, "No." Who am I?
but
Who's little old me? But then I saw a medium in the chat room, and she goes, "Oh, they know very well who she is." And I thought to myself, God, it was a frightening moment, because I just sort of sat there and thinking, oh my God, this is just sort of scary to think about, that there are beings of this nature who technically know exactly who you are. And they can infiltrate your life at any given time. And they do. They do. I've had...
That's why I want to check the book out to see if he mentions it in the book, and they didn't on film.
Chris
says, as an ex-Wiccan, I've known how to protect myself from very real spiritual beings. Had I grown up as a Christian, I might have had a different view. I don't agree with that either. Because as a Roman Catholic, you call on Archangel Michael. So I don't know about that. That's been my route before understanding my gifts, and it never failed me. So, Well,
what I find interesting, though, is, again, in your case with remote viewing, you can see clearly in a different way. No, but
I didn't know that then, though.
No, but it's in a different way than just psychically,
Yeah.
So I think that is a very plausible...
I'm laughing because
plausible thing. Chris is like, wow.
Remember when I said to you, I grew up, I always wanted to be psychic. I just thought I was giving great advice. I'm serious. I always wished that I could do this. Now I'm like, what were you thinking? I always wish that I had this gift. And then I used to just think, I just give really good advice. Like, everybody wants to talk to me. They want to know my opinion, how to do things. I seem to tell them, like, lead them the right way, and they feel comforted by me. Little did I know I was an empath, I was a medium, or I was a remote viewer. I didn't know. I knew that something was different. I knew that I could see.
Right.
I just thought everybody else could.
Okay.
I thought I could see.
Okay, my emails are not going through.
I knew I could. No? This is bizarro.
It is very bizarre.
This is bizarro, weirdo kind of stuff.
I'm going to do it this way right here.
Very October, though.
Right?
Very October of you.
Oh.
Thank you, Chris. I love you, and I respect your opinion as well. You can agree to disagree. It's okay. I believe also, as Michelle states over and over, that mindset's a big thing. If you feel in your mind that this is what works, then it works for you.
Right. There we go.
And I've got about 100 medals around my neck. I'm not lying.
All right.
That's the part of me of Roman Catholic that I still keep.
Yes.
Yes.
That's...
it's because of Alex. Just kick your
God's
computer.
sakes, Alex, I just bought this one. I don't want
oh my gosh, this one's new, Alex. Like, literally a couple months.
Wait a minute.
Even.
When my last one went down, were you in the chat?
Oh, that's probably why you said it.
It's like, holy crap. So yeah, this is where I think that again, mindset is very important, and I believe that you should go with whatever gives you strength, whatever makes you feel powerful. Um, Sometimes I find with religion itself, it also puts a lot of fear.
Yeah.
So some of it can be pretty fear-based, and I don't think that that's a really good idea, because not even just now, you should never have fear of the creator. You should always it should always be very, very relaxed. You should always feel good about it.
Safe.
But when, we've just encountered, and I know I've spent 2 decades of it, you have spirits who are stuck because they're afraid to move on because their belief system was so staunch that they were terrified to leave this place in fear of what would wait for them. But being taught, no, like your God is all loving. It's like, but yet you have this belief system. You don't do this
I
or
think,
else. It's like, shit,
yeah, I
I'm
believe
staying
that
here.
exactly. And I believe that that's changing, and that this generation, when it comes time for them to ascend, will have a different route because their eyes are a little bit more open, their minds are a little bit more open than it was
Yeah,
before.
exactly. I agree, Alex. That's
Yeah,
right. Yeah, I'm
it was
recovering Baptist.
absolutely. And it's very sad,
I've said
but
the same with Christianity or Roman
yeah,
Catholicism.
I can still find bits and pieces in the Catholic religion that I agree with, and I hold that to my heart, but that's mostly prayer. It's not the doctrine of it. It's mostly the
Mhm.
prayers make me feel
Right,
stronger.
right, right. Again, because that's your belief system. You feel good about it. It makes you feel good. It gives you strength. Here's a
Feels
question for you.
yeah. Chris, since I'm not Catholic, do you think it's okay that I pray the rosary? I mean, I get what the rosary is. Absolutely. It's prayer. It's
Mhm.
prayer. You know, yeah, it's prayer. I have the Hallow app, and I don't go to mass. I use it because I like the meditations on there, and I
Right.
like learning about the saints. There's historical things. There's different reasons for things. I don't like to be forced into anything, any belief or any system. I have to feel that something is right,
Mhm.
and that's it. Like I believe in the saints. I believe in the archangels. Those are
Mhm.
my beliefs. They're Christian beliefs as well, but it's not necessarily because I grew up Roman Catholic. It's just I do believe in the archangels and the saints.
Mhm. Right.
There's Christians that do not have saints.
Mhm. Yeah,
I think the
exactly.
Baptists don't either, right? Do they? I don't think so. I think because I've been in a Baptist church, I never saw anything like that. You go into an
They're
old
just
Catholic
very
church and you will
hardcore.
see saints
Yeah.
everywhere. But
Like the
and churches are
Orthodox are
named
pretty
after
staunch
saints.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I have a beautiful Greek Orthodox church down the street from me. My
Yeah.
gosh, is it ever beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love the old architecture.
Well,
I've
this is
spent
new. It's
yeah.
shockingly beautiful.
Anywhere I travel in the world, I always gravitate to the old, like, Gothic church. When I was
Absolutely.
in, Glasgow, in Scotland, they had the oldest Gothic church in all of the UK there.
My
Spent
goodness.
some time in there going, "Oh my
Must have
god.
been stunning.
Oh
Did
my
you
god.
lean against the wall, say, "Take me, take me"?
I'm touching everything.
Yeah, I would too. I would wanna connect
Touch
with all the
everything."
you have to remember you have to think back that far with no
Yeah,
education, no nothing except generation to generation and learning from mistakes, the creativity, the passion in their buildings. Their buildings had meaning. Every
mhm,
stone was placed a certain way. It's magical, regardless
right,
if you're of that faith or not. These these
right,
these houses, these churches,
right,
cathedrals are magical. I mean, you can say what we can say whatever we want about the Vatican, but you go to St. Peter's and you're in awe.
mhm,
A man is on his back painting this great ceiling.
mhm, yeah, I
The
know,
Milan Duomo. Duomo means cathedral.
Mhm.
You see that every little placement of every little peak tells a story and brings it up to the heavens.
Mhm.
You have to know the history. It's just how it's so magical.
Yeah.
You must have just been like, you know,
Every
white
time.
light everywhere.
I've been to cathedrals, mostly because I'm a fan of architectures. I was very fortunate to spend quite a bit of time at Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, before it burned down. And you realize now that when history is lost, it's lost. When that architecture is lost, it's lost.
Very
And
sad.
there's something looking at a building that's hundreds, if not thousands of years old, that is just spectacular, whether it be a church or cathedral, or whether it be a castle, or whether it be, some of the buildings that we've have, on this side of the world. It's just, there's just a lot there, a lot of history. Workmanship isn't the same anymore.
No, and Notre Dame
know?
that rebuild will not be completed in our lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Michelangelo went blind from painting the ceiling, so I think he was going blind anyways. I think they just fit that into his story, because back then they wouldn't have known about, like issues with the cornea and things like that.
Right.
Because there's a lot of painters that didn't go blind. Van Gogh cut his own ear off
Mm-hmm.
because to prove his love, and
Yeah.
I believe he was murdered. But they were not greats until they died. They were nobodies when they were building. And that's my ancestors included, were nobodies till they passed away and Pisa became a big thing.
Yeah.
That's just the way it was then. And they would do things for the church because they were fed and housed. They weren't paid.
Yeah.
That's how they did it.
One second here. So
Dragon says
trying.
a higher power, but have many guides that are like gods, really. I'm with you, Dragon. I'm the same. I like to take bits and pieces of everything and put it together, and it fits right now for me. I don't judge anybody.
Yeah, I'm just talking to the guests.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll keep talking. I can do that. I can do that. Tamara says, when I die, my painting will then be worth money. Well, if I can see it, I might be able to sell it for you. Michelle and I are great salespeople.
Yeah.
You don't want to be up against us if we're trying to bid on something, though. I cut people off at their knees if I want something at an auction. And I'm really good at it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Wayne.
Oh boy.
Oh my gosh. So Wayne, if my niece wants to order your books, will you sign them for her? Would you mind?
Yeah. Wayne.
She wants to read the books. She's a big avid reader. She's always reading, always constantly reading.
Yeah. Sorry guys. I have a feeling we're just gonna have to
it's already like 40 minutes to
end
time.
I know. So that's that.
Why would she want one? She wants all of them. I know the mailing part is the crazy part.
Yeah.
The weight.
Or you can just go to you.
I can print my name on crayon on the inside. She'll love that. When I told her what the story was based on, she's just like, I need to read those books. I said, you need to buy them because I don't share. I'm not that person that lends out books.
So there.
No, I'm not that person that lends out books because I support artists and writers. So that's why I don't lend a book.
Yeah.
I used to a long time ago when I was very young and poor. I used to do that. And, you swap out whatever. But I haven't done it in years. And I lost a lot of great books over the years lending them. And I refuse to, especially when I know the author, I refuse to lend my books out. I've never lent out Jeff Mudgett's book either.
No.
I've made everyone buy it. Cece, I've made everybody ride that book. I am going to read the first one. I will. I have to be focused too.
Well, that helps.
Yeah. Being focused helps. I can't focus on anything. I can't focus on even a sitcom. Like I can't my mind is everywhere with my daughter right now. She's still not stable, right? So it's like that's in my head constantly.
Yeah.
I haven't bought a real book in years. All of my books are ebooks this day. I buy
I like the
ebooks.
smell of a new book.
I like the smell, but I like to hold a book, and I like Wayne's books are so thick, and I love that struggle that you're getting to the end, but then you're
It's a good
sad.
quality paper as well.
It
So
really is, and that's a big deal.
yeah,
There's no strain on your eyes when you're reading his books.
yeah.
My whole thing with books, I collect them. I've got leather bound, just hand
She
sewn
does.
books.
She really does.
So yeah, so it's a different thing for me. I will buy ebooks on not silly things, because for some people it's important to them, like numerology, like new age things. I will not spend the money on books on new age. I'm just saying right now.
See, I
won't.
love really old books.
That's
Obviously, like
me.
really old.
I have mechanic books. Like I have so many old books. Like it's just crazy.
Yeah.
I also have newspapers that date back to the 1900s. Thank you,
Right.
Dragon. Thank you so much. Take positive vibes and prayers. We love them.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Oh, made in Canada.
Yes. And that's important as well. Yeah. Old bookstores are the greatest, aren't they?
Makes you feel like you're going back in time. Like
That's
you're going,
one.
like you're going to Hogwarts.
That's one thing I didn't do in Boston. And the Hawthorns and Edgar Allan Poe. What was I thinking? That's what I have to do next time I go.
No, exactly.
Yeah. What star is Asterix coming at you, Bubbles? Oh, thank you. I understood. Thank you. I seen it. Thank you, Wayne.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. It's been a frustrating.
I know.
Frustrating. Is he having trouble connecting?
No.
Okay.
Just long story. We're going to reschedule because it's just not going to be enough time for him to come on and talk about everything he needs to talk about. There's so much information, and I want to make sure that we do him justice with the proper with the proper amount of time. So we'll retitle the name of the show and just
I will do that for you.
Yeah. So of course we're coming into, we'll switch gears a little bit here. Of course we're getting into, this is spooky month. And
my favorite time.
I know. Oh, wait. Oh, hold on. Wow. Hello.
Oh, no. Microphone.
No sound. Yeah. Oop. Nope. I know. Did you give StreamYard permission to use your microphone? It could just be in your settings. You might have to just go in and click it to the mic.
It's not muted either. So maybe your microphone is muted. Check your microphone. If the light's flashing, then it's muted.
Yep. Nope.
Oh, is that a Shure? I don't know.
Probably in your settings. Nope.
Thanks, Wayne. Yeah.
Did you give I know we can't get you at all. Did you give StreamYard permission to use the microphone?
Yeah, you have to do that.
Okay.
Maybe jump out.
So do that again. I'm going to knock you out. Yeah. Okay. We'll do that. All righty. Try that. Hold on. There we go. Okay. My God. It's a crazy night. Do we have like something planetary going on or something?
Hi, Dolly. I didn't see you there. Hi, no. Dolly. Hello, Dolly. Well, hello. Dolly.
I know. We're starting extremely late, but we'll see if we could go a little bit later anyway. But spooky month is the time. I know it's the time of year where allegedly the veil is thinner and hauntings amp up and the spirits find it easier to communicate. I used to get so crazy busy this time of year with haunted people, and I'd be just like, what is it about this time of year? I think it's mindset.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
horror movies, wanting that experience, going out and looking for it. I don't know.
And they're the 1 month out of the year people. We do this year round. So
Yeah.
it's balance. It's
I
balance,
know.
baby. It's balance.
Yeah.
And then, you know, a lot of people, they get heavily into the horror films and the podcasts, and they want to see all these psychics on TV, and they want to, like you said, they want to investigate. It's like,
Yeah. There
there's
we go.
communication. But remember what I said to you about my mom would say the veil was thinner at Christmas?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's believed it actually is closer to Christmas and not Halloween. But that would throw a lot of people into a tizzy.
See, and I think that's why they put the birth of Jesus Christ in December, was to kind of ward off the evil that was happening at the end of the year. Because my mother would say that it was an unfortunate soul that was born at the end of the year. You want
Right.
them in the new year. You don't want them with the burden of that year on their shoulders.
Right.
That was something she would say, because I was due Christmas Day with my first, and it upset her. I'm like, well,
Not
you
funny.
got your
eh?
wish, because I lost the baby, but Gabrielle was due Christmas Day.
Yeah. See, crazy.
So, yeah. And my mother
Yeah.
was just like, I'm happy that you're expecting. I'm just, can like, we got to try and get you to hold off 5 more days. I'm like, what?
5 days.
What do you want to do? Stitch it up?
I know. What?
What are you talking about? And I said to my dad, what kind of drugs is she on? Like, I want some. You know?
Mom's got some shenanigans going on. Fix her.
Yeah, you can't, whatever you do, you got to hold out till the new year. This was
Yeah.
before she went in for surgery that she passed from.
Wow.
She said that to me, and I was just like, the hell?
I know. Like,
And my
what?
brother's laughing. He's like, oh, you know, Mom with her superstitions. I go, no, Mom's not superstitious. My mother was not superstitious.
Right.
She didn't care. We had a black cat. My dad was a
Right.
builder. We walked under ladders all the time. There was always a ladder in our house
Right.
somewhere. My dad was
Right.
doing something.
Right.
Like, come on. But
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah.
how's
I
it
don't
going
know.
there?
I do think that, you know, this is a time of year where people
I'm
want an
laughing at Wayne.
experience. People want
Yes.
to be there. People go to haunted events and haunted locations and maybe some ghost tours and
It's like
putting
Christmas.
themselves
People want to be
in.
nice, but they're not.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, come on. If you think about it, what are the chances? You go on a ghost walk. It's pretty benign for the most part. You go to a haunted event or
I've never
function.
done that.
Really?
Well, I watched you
I did
and
ghost
Wayne
tours
speak.
for like 10
I
years.
watched you and Wayne speak. I've never gone. I was supposed to go on the last one that Lorraine Warren did in Toronto Footpaths, and I
A friend
didn't
of
go
mine did
because
that
I
one. I
was
was at that one. Yeah.
yeah. I would have met you then. I was
Yes, you
sick
would've.
and I didn't go, but I
Funny.
was
It
supposed
was
to
a
be
friend of
there.
mine who put that on. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
when she was coming, I thought, this is the only chance I'm going to get to meet her. She's elderly, and she
Yeah.
did pass a few years after that. So,
Yeah.
but
Well, she did. Yeah. I was fortunate. I went to her home 2-3
Or
years
you're going
before
to see
that
King
too.
Tut. I saw King Tut when I was a little girl in school.
Yeah.
So when you
Oh,
go to school in the big
okay.
city,
We're going to try again.
okay. How's it going?
Is it any better now?
That's a dreamy voice worth waiting for. Let me tell you, that's a great voice. That was worth
Welcome.
waiting for.
Wow. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. The whole faux pas for the 19th. All the rest of our communication showed the 18th. I thought I must have had just a little brain toot there in one moment.
It's okay. I just, like I said, I was just going off that. So I was home tonight. I was home. I was just,
yeah. Well, we originally had you. So promo was out. It's like,
I had
oh
it was good. And the funny thing was that, my daughter is doing physical therapy. So tonight was her first night. So we were in the living room on the floor doing all these exercises. She had surgery on the foot a couple of months ago.
Oh, I hope she's okay.
And so I was playing music. So it's just something I'm not like on the floor of my living room at 7:30 with music loud. Otherwise, I'd had my phone by and I would have seen Mark's email saying, "Hey, where are you?" But
well, that's okay. We're gonna go a little bit. We're gonna go a little bit later tonight. We're gonna try to take it an extra bit just to make sure we can get all this in, because there's so much information. I did watch a documentary. What I thought I would do, if it's okay with you, is start off by playing the trailer?
Sure, absolutely.
Does that work okay? Okay, give me one
Yeah,
second. Let me
sure.
go in and grab that puppy right over here.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, we're gonna share this up. Bear with me, guys, because I'm a little bit off my game right now. And let's play this.
We're missing his sound.
I love it.
Okay, I didn't have any sound on that at all.
What?
That's why I was waving at you. I
I'm
had
waving
no
back.
sound. There's no sound on video.
Say bubble. Oh yeah, it was like full on sound. Did
Yeah.
everybody hear it? No
No,
sound.
no.
Everybody say no sound. What is this?
Did you hear it, Ryan?
No, I just typed it in the chat. I couldn't hear it either.
Yeah,
Oh,
see, it was only on
wow.
your end. That's why I was waving you down. I'm like,
Oh.
no sound. I wasn't
I've
saying
got
I'm crazy. We
full-on
all know.
sound, like
We all know I'm
Peter
not.
sound.
But yeah,
So
yeah, no
okay.
sound, no
Well, maybe we'll
sound.
just try it again. I don't know why it was like full on.
Okay,
And
if there's no sound, I'm gonna wave you really high. Okay.
it was. Well, yeah. Well, okay. We'll see if we can try it again afterwards. Darn it. God Almighty. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I should have said that. God Almighty, why? So anyway, so I thought it was a really great documentary, and
Thank you. I appreciate it.
yeah, it's really hard to know where to start with everything. So because we don't have a full 2 hours, I'm going to just hand the floor over to you and let you just go, and Amelia and I will just jump in as we go because I want you to get out as much info as possible.
Okay. All right.
Take it away. So what prompted you to write about the Nephilim? What was it?
Sure. So my journey to becoming an author on the Nephilim, really, it was all God. It was really all God guiding everything, because I knew I grew up a Christian and grew up in the church, going to church, believe in the Bible. And however, I was really not a student of Bible prophecy. I didn't study Revelation. I mean, I knew about Revelation, but I wasn't a big student of Bible prophecy or the supernatural so much. And it was really once I was done with school and working that I started just stumbling upon different ministries or shows or websites that were showing how world events were converging with Bible prophecy. And so my background, I was a political science major in college. I was very much into politics. I worked for a summer in the Senate when I was in law school. So politics was definitely my thing. And when I saw that connection, then I really started getting interested and started going down lots of rabbit holes about just the end times and one world government, one world currency. This is all like 2007. So it was like the Bilderberg Group, the Continental Foreign Relations, all these things, right? And it was just amazing. And then there was one ministry that I used to buy lots of DVDs from and books from, and whether it's L.A. Marzulli, Billy Crone, Chuck Missler, all these people, and they sent me a free DVD on the Nephilim, and I really knew nothing about the Nephilim at that time at all, and it really just blew me away, changed my perspective on the Bible. Like I really say it's like going from like black and white to like 4K UHD, like seeing, understanding the Old Testament. And then it was like, where God really played a role. God led me to that. And then also with my background, I just wanted to research this and go down as many rabbit holes night after night as possible. And what I started noticing was, I'm like, there are a lot of things in the Bible that connect to these two bloodlines, that this war of these two bloodlines that I'm not seeing in any books. And that's what led me down the path of researching and writing and saying, okay, I'm going to actually write a book on this myself. And one, to show that this is the story of the Bible. This is, just as we talk about the Bible is a story of salvation, of redemption. This is a key part of it. And it goes through the whole Old Testament. It's not just Genesis 6. It's not just David and Goliath. It weaves its way all the way to the birth of Christ. And so I wanted to really show that, and then also make a book that you can show that the Bible supports this. It's not just from the apocryphal books. It's not just from mythology. It's in the Bible itself. And that was kind of the whole origin of it.
So let's back up then.
Yeah, sure.
Who are they? Where do they come from? Because a lot of people, it's commercial, but I don't think they really get it.
Yeah, and I understand you, and that's the thing. As I'm sure both you ladies know, this is not something commonly taught in the church. I mean, there are people I know who've been in church for decades and say to me all the time, "I've never even heard of this before." And so the Nephilim, they are, in short, they are the hybrid, half fallen angelic, half human giants that were first born in what we call the days of Noah, Noah's Ark, probably one of the most famous stories in the Bible. Everyone knows Noah's Ark, but the reason for the flood, and this goes back to the importance of it in the biblical narrative, the entire biblical narrative, is that when you understand what was taking place at that time, they were the reason for the flood. And to really figure out and determine their origin, it really goes back even 3 chapters earlier than Genesis 6 to Genesis chapter 3. And that's where I start checking the Nephilim, which is with that chapter in particular in Genesis 3:15, which I call the ultimate prophecy. And that's really what sets the stage for everything that happens in the days of Noah, because of course the story of Adam and Eve sinning, which again, everyone knows that story of them sinning in the Garden of Eden and God punishing them. However, in verse 15, we see the punishment for the devil, for Satan. And that's when God, speaking directly to the devil, says that he is going to put enmity, war, aggression, a battle, a conflict between the devil's seed and Eve's seed, and then prophesies the first messianic prophecy that the seed of the woman, a child born from a human woman, was going to conquer the devil one day, right? And so that is what I challenge the reader to do in my book. I say, consider God saying this from the perspective of the fallen angels. Don't think about it from what we commonly know the story. When the devil and the fallen angels hear this, it's really something revolutionary, right? It's radical that God the Father who's talking to the devil is not going to punish Satan directly. It's going to be a child, a kid, a baby's going to be born who's going to have the power to actually beat the devil, probably the most powerful of all the angels. And so now, not only was it shocking in that way, it also gave the devil a target, because now, in order to stop this from coming to pass, I got to either destroy this child, prevent this child from being born, or corrupt this child to prevent this prophecy from ever being fulfilled. And so that's what we see. And so the devil's target became humanity. And what I throw out there is, even looking at the first 2 sons born, Cain and Abel. And I say, again, thinking from the fallen angelic perspective, not what we learn in Sunday school, Cain, who was the first son of Adam and Eve, he could have been the Messiah, right? He was the first seed, offspring, baby, child.
That's true.
And so the devil, of course, goes on the attack and lures Cain into sin. We see the account where Cain kills Abel, his brother, in jealousy, because God accepted Abel's offering and didn't accept Cain's. And from that perspective, it was like a 2-for-1 shot on the Messianic bloodline, because Abel also could have been the Messiah. Like, right, one of these two sons could have been the Messiah, and the devil was able to get two of them out of the way in
You
one
kill one and corrupt the other, essentially.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so then this is where it turns into, like, what my friend L.A. Marzulli calls the cosmic chess match, right? Where now God and the devil are going back and forth, making move and counter move on the chessboard of the human existence, basically.
Right.
God responds by banishing Cain. He banishes Cain from Eden, which allows the Messianic bloodline to grow, right? Adam and Eve have more children without Cain's influence, criminal history, murderous ways. So now they can grow without his violence. And so the bloodline continues. And what does God keep saying to every human being, every couple? Be fruitful and multiply. Have lots of kids. That was God's plan. Fill the earth up with babies, right? And so what did this mean? The number of potential messiahs now has increased exponentially, right? And so this is what sets the stage for Genesis 6. And when you go back, and I love to really, I would say, I'm a very slow Bible reader. Like, some people can do the Bible in a year plan, and some people do that every year. My wife does it like every other year. And like, God bless everyone who does that. I go really slow.
Right.
And I love the little details, because when you get to Genesis 6, in verse 1, the context of the whole birth of the Nephilim, it says, when men began to multiply upon the earth and daughters were born to them. So it was the human population growing is what led the devil to now say, I got to launch a wide scale attack to knock out a whole bunch of the human race, if not the entire human race at one time, because I can't go one Messiah at a time anymore, because the human population has grown too much.
Right.
And so what this attack, what I call the nuclear strike on the human race, was the incursion of the fallen angels. There's a subset, a faction of the fallen angels who rebelled with the devil, entered the human realm, took human women as wives, and fathered the Nephilim hybrids. And that's what we see in Genesis 6:4. It says, the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and went in unto them, right? This is the language of reproduction. They were getting it on. This is literally what the Bible is saying. And conceiving,
and corrupting them in a sense as well, right?
And this is what they were, because the plan was to introduce the fallen angelic DNA and genetics to corrupt human genetics, our genome, to prevent the birth of a fully human Messiah. And this is the funny thing, is that there's a lot of science in the Bible. God has a specific genetic order. And when you think about it, Jesus Christ, who is fully God and fully man at the same time, his salvation on the cross is just for humanity. It's not for anyone. It's not for the fallen angels. It's just for us. And so that was very important. And the devil was clearly aware of this and thought, if I can just corrupt humanity and make us something other than human, something other than image bearers of God, I can then prevent this Messiah from being born.
Right.
And we even see further confirmation that this was a genetic battle taking place with the introduction of Noah. Now, of course, Noah is who God chose to basically reboot the human race and continue us after the flood. However, there are two important things we see with Noah's introduction. One, God says 3 times when he speaks to Noah, all flesh has corrupted itself. That even the animals, that something took place that caused all of humanity to be fully corrupted. And it was the introduction of this fallen angelic seed, this hybrid program the fallen angels were running, that was literally turning all of us into monsters, right? And so that was the one thing. But then when it introduces Noah, it says Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations. And that term for perfect in the Hebrew is tamim, which means a physical perfection, not morally perfect, that he was physically perfect, that he was without blemish. It's the same term used for the sacrificial lambs at Passover. That has to be a lamb without blemish, that has no physical defect. And what did that mean with respect to Noah? That he was perfectly human. And in fact, not only him, but of course his parents and his children, because it says in his generations, his lineage was still 100% human, no Nephilim DNA, no fallen angelic DNA, which is why, of course, and he was a believer.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which is why he was chosen to be really the father of this, of rebooting humanity after the flood. And so this is how we see further confirmation that this is what it was really about. It was a plan to really prevent our salvation, to corrupt us and prevent our salvation, our Messiah, Jesus Christ, from being born.
Sounds a little bit like just hindering evolution.
Exactly.
So I have to ask, how does an angel, because I mean, there's a lot of different depictions of angels.
Yeah, sure.
And how does an angel connect with a human female? It's almost to me like, and nowadays in modern times, how would you, connect, shall we say, with an extraterrestrial?
Right, right. Very similar.
Like
very
the
similar.
Genetic part of it, per se.
Yeah. So,
apples, oranges, maybe.
Yeah. So, excuse me. So great question. Very important question. Right? How does it actually happen, right? That they're conceiving a child.
Right.
And so I looked to several different parts of the Bible that I think when you look at the totality of the evidence, it makes it clear how it can happen. So the first thing to think about is that angels have bodies. They have a physical presence. And this is really important. We see this throughout the Bible because a lot of times we think of angels like a ghost, where they're just ethereal and they have no actual physical body, but they do. And we see in Genesis, God and two angels go to Abraham's house and he prepares a meal for them. They eat. He has his servants clean their feet. So they're physically there. They can be touched. They're eating food, right? The Israelites, when they were eating, received manna from heaven in the wilderness,
right,
to survive. In the Psalms, it says, man did eat angels' food in the wilderness. So the food they were eating is the food that angels eat in heaven, the manna. So which means that our physiology is close enough to an angel's that we can eat their food and they can eat our food. I mean, if you think about it, right? You can eat dog food and get sick, but we can eat angels' food and survive, and they can eat our food. So they have bodies, they have a physiology. They touch people, they can fight people, and they can appear human, right? I think angels can change their appearance, but we know they can appear human. Many times they're referred to as the man. I saw the man, but it was an angel. In the book of Hebrews, we're specifically told that you may have an angel come into your house and you don't even know it's an angel.
This is true. And there's a lot of stories of that happening.
It would be kind to strangers and how you entertain strangers because it could be an angel.
Right.
So they can completely resemble a human being.
Right.
And then you get to a chapter in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, which is an amazing chapter. There's a ton of supernatural doctrine in this chapter that the Apostle Paul is kind of breaking down. But he gets to a section where he's talking about the body. And he's referring to the body, what he calls a celestial body, which is the immortal body that angels have, and the body that Christians, believers receive at our glorification at the rapture, that are immortal, that we have forever.
Mm-hmm.
And the terrestrial body, which of course is the body we have now that will die and turn to dust.
Right.
And he's going back and forth contrasting them. But then he makes this interesting statement. He says, unto everything that God has given a body, he has given a seed. So he's clearly saying that in the context of talking about the body an angel has, a celestial body, he says that they have seed, DNA, reproductive materials, right?
Interesting.
So I take the fact that, so now we know they have bodies, right? They have an actual physical body. They have a real physiology. They eat food. They can eat our food. They can totally take on a human form to look just like a human, that we can't even tell the difference. They have seed. And again, Genesis 6:4 and the book of Jude in chapter 1, verses 6 and 7 specifically says that angels went after strange flesh for fornication. I mean, it's saying it plain as day.
The sin
is fornication. This is what they were doing. And they were punished for it, that subgroup of angels, by being put in the abyss. That there are angels right now who are in hell, under chains, in darkness. This is what Jude says in 2 Peter chapter 2, confirms the same thing as well. When you think about that, the devil is not in hell. Contrary to popular belief in TV, the devil isn't in hell, right? The devil told God in the book of Job, I'm just going to and fro on the earth. I can go wherever I want to go, right? He can still access heaven. But yet there was a group of angels who did something so bad that was such a violation of God's law that he sent them to hell immediately. And who was it? It was the Genesis 6 angels, the sons of God, the Benai Ha Elohim, who committed fornication. And that violation, that attempt to literally corrupt us and prevent the Messiah, God sent them to hell immediately. And so when you put all of that together, that's why I said taking one verse is hard, but when you look at all the evidence together, I think it's clear that this is what took place, and that the Bible confirms that angels have the ability to reproduce.
Right. And you make mention of one called the Assyrian.
Yes.
That was a curiosity to me because I've never heard that. As I'm sure many, many people haven't. It's not stuff you're taught about.
Yeah, so, no. And, even when I was writing the book, I was still living in New York at the time. I live in Texas now. My pastor at the time, at the church I attended, he knew I was writing the book and working on it. So I showed him that chapter, and he said, he'd never even heard anyone preach on that chapter. He's been a pastor for 30 something years. He goes, I've never even heard someone preach on this chapter, much less connect it to the Nephilim. So it's not a common interpretation, but I think it's really important. I think it does connect to everything that we're talking about. And so who is the Assyrian? So I believe the Assyrian was the angel who led this group of angels in Genesis 6. He was the preeminent ruler of the Genesis 6 angels. And again, this is not the devil. The devil did not commit fornication in the days of Noah. He did not participate in this. And so this angel, who is different from the devil, is, I think, in view in Ezekiel chapter 31, and he's called the Assyrian. He's mentioned throughout the Bible, throughout the Old Testament, as the Assyrian. But that chapter specifically describes his rise and fall in the days of Noah. And the first thing to understand about it is, if you go to that chapter, which again is not a commonly discussed or studied or preached on chapter, I call it an esoteric passage. So it's right in line with what the more commonly known esoteric chapters, like Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel chapter 28, where God is addressing a king. In Isaiah 14, it's the king of Babylon. In Ezekiel 28, it's the prince of Tyre. But he's not really talking to that person. He's actually addressing an angel. And in both cases, I believe in Isaiah 14, where he says, Lucifer, son of the morning, I believe he's talking about the devil, and says, and goes through the 5 aspirations. I will sit upon the top of the congregation. I will be like the Most High, where he's addressing the devil, even though it says the king of Babylon. Similar pattern is found in Ezekiel chapter 28, where it's the prince of Tyre, but God says, you are perfect in wisdom, in beauty. He even says, thou hast been in Eden, the garden of God. So now we're not talking about the prince of Tyre. He's talking about the devil when he was still righteous. And he says, you had, every precious jewel was that covering. He lists 9 jewels. And those 9 jewels are 9 of the 12 that he instructed Aaron, Moses' brother, who was the first high priest, to wear on his breastplate to enter the tabernacle, the most holy place. He had to wear 12 jewels for each of the tribes. Well, guess what? Satan had those 9 of those jewels on his chest. So again, this is going way into ancient history, but it's technically addressed to the prince of Tyre, but you're really talking about the devil.
Would those be the same jewels that the temple priests of the kingdom of David would have on their breastplates, their chest
exactly
plates? Same. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So that's interesting.
And David even consults them to discern God's will at one point, but
so it keeps going down the line,
which natural properties, right? And so, because I believe that's also referred to as the Urim and Thummim in Scripture, which is used to actually discern God's will. If you want to know God's will, they could actually use, like David used it at one point. And and Joshua as well. But anyway, I digress.
Yes. Yeah. No.
So yes, that's Ezekiel 28. But then you just go 3 chapters later. Remember, this is the same prophet, and we see another one of these passages, but it's talking about the Assyrian. And when you look into the context of how, the language is very poetic and metaphorical, but then it can be decoded.
Right.
So it starts off by saying that the Assyrian, he was this cedar in Lebanon. The Lebanese cedar can grow to 100 feet. And he uses this metaphoric language of comparing this angel, this fallen angel, to this mighty tree that had branches and fruits. And it says all the nations dwelt under his shadow. So he ruled. He was a global ruler in the days of Noah. And in fact, it's very similar. The language of Ezekiel 31 is very similar to Daniel chapter 4, where Nebuchadnezzar has a dream and says, I had a dream and I'm not going to tell anyone my dream. You have to tell me what I dreamt and then interpret it for me. And Daniel, of course, can interpret it. And it's about a tree. It's very, very similar language. And Daniel said that was mighty and had flowers and all the animals were under it. And Daniel said the tree is you and represents your kingdom and your might and your power. So we're seeing the exact same metaphor being used for this angel. But the difference is, it again, like Ezekiel 28, says that not only was he a great and mighty king, it says that all of the other little trees in Eden were jealous of him. So it starts making all these references to the Garden of Eden. And I believe the fallen angels took over the Garden of Eden before the flood happened. And so it goes on to describe that he grew to a great height, he was powerful, and then he describes his fall. That just like the devil, he became prideful, he exalted himself, and God destroyed him. And how did he destroy him? With a flood. It actually references the flood waters at the end of the chapter and says that the water that God cast him down to the nether parts of the earth, to Tehom, the abyss, exactly where Jude says those angels are right now. It says that's where he took the Assyrian and all the trees of Eden, which I believe is a reference to all the fallen angels, and in the days of Noah. And the last confirmation I'll give that really connects it is that it says that in the days that when God judged him with the flood, says he destroyed his kingdom, and it even says that his offspring died before him, because that was the judgment of the Nephilim, was the flood. The Nephilim giants died. The angels were dragged down to the abyss alive in the floodwaters and then imprisoned.
Right.
But the crazy thing is, it says that God punished the Assyrian with the floodwaters. It says that he was sent to hell in the days that the waters of the flood abated. So when was that? Well, when you go to Genesis 8 and you look at the chronology of the flood, it says after 150 days, the waters abated. Remember, water came from the sky, but also from the ground. And it said the waters returned back to the fountains of the deep. And I believe that's when the angels were dragged down to the abyss in a supernatural whirlpool after 150 days. Because that's what Ezekiel 31 says. They were brought down into other parts of the earth. So keep that number in mind, because what happens is the book of Jude says those angels who've been dragged down to the abyss, they are imprisoned until the judgment of the great day, the great tribulation. So then you go to Revelation. In Revelation chapter 9, that same abyss is opened. And when the abyss is open, suddenly these creatures emerge who are called locusts. But what are they? They're hybrids. It says they have the face of a man, hair of a woman, teeth like a lion, these grotesque, very bizarre looking beings. I believe those are the fallen angels from Genesis 6. And when they are released from the abyss, they're finally released from their prison. It says that they are instructed to torment, to torture everybody living on earth, every human being who's not a believer. It says who does not have the seal of God in their forehead. So now they come out to torture people and torment people. It says they will torment them for 5 months, which in the Hebrew calendar is 150 days.
Right.
They were tormented by the floodwaters for 150 days and then dragged down to hell. And when they are released from the bottomless pit, now they torment unbelieving humanity who are worshiping the Antichrist for 150 days. So it really connects, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be.
Right.
On the Son of Man.
Right. Almost a little bit like what believe that we're going through even in current times. It's like, let's face it, there's a lot of tormenting going on,
Yes,
shall
yeah.
we say, without getting us flagged on YouTube. There's a
Yeah,
lot
definitely.
going on for sure.
And the efforts to even change our genetics, right? I mean, there's so much of that today with transhumanism,
Mhm.
things that alter
Yeah.
DNA, RNA, all these things, right? These are all the birth pangs. It's not a coincidence, right? I mean,
Yes.
Jesus pointed, and this is another reason why understanding the Nephilim is so important. In Matthew 24, Jesus, he points to this time and says, if you want to know what the world is going to be like before I return, it's going to be like the days of Noah. So if
Hmm.
Jesus is making that statement, something important really happened. And we need to
Something, yeah.
understand what was going on in the world at that time to really be able to discern the end times.
Hmm. So how do they get back? Because we know the Nephilim came back. I mean, there's
Yeah,
evidence of giants being found, bones and all kinds of stuff all over the world. I mean, it's no
yeah,
hiding it. But
definitely.
there were giants walking the earth up to even 100 years ago.
Sure. I mean, there's so many stories, right? I mean, it goes from ancient accounts, right, in different cultures way outside of Israel, right, in South
Yeah.
America, in North America, all over the world, and then also to newspaper articles, right? So,
Yeah.
like you said, like in the 1800s, and so,
Right.
um, excuse me. So, how did they come back after the flood? I believe that the DNA of the Nephilim made it through on the ark and through the wives of Noah's sons, and specifically through the wife of his son Ham.
Hmm.
And there are two reasons I'll give that. There are many reasons, but two main reasons I get into in Judgment of the Nephilim that I think prove that are one, I look at the giants after the flood and the different giant tribes that the Israelites are instructed to go and battle and war against, like in the book
Hmm.
of Joshua, and they are all traced back to Canaan. You know, the common thinking is that when Joshua and the Israelites went on this war campaign, they were just killing everybody. But it wasn't. God told them, He said, 7 nations, and He names them. He
Right.
says, who are mightier and stronger than you. That's who I want you to fight.
Right.
And they're all Canaan's descendant. Of course, Canaan was the grandson of Noah through his son Ham. So
Mhm.
and if you think about it too, the crazy thing is Canaan is like, to me, one of the most mysterious people in the Bible, right? Think about it too, because in the Old Testament, the promised land itself, Israel, is called the land of Canaan.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Right? Because he's never quoted in the Bible and he's never
Right.
described. You
Right.
never even see like Canaan ate breakfast. There's nothing about him that actually describes him doing anything in the Bible, yet he's mentioned 164 times in the Old Testament, and the promised land itself is named after him. So
Right.
those are the things that for me, that gets
That's
me
a curiosity.
all my everything starts binging for me. All my sirens and alarms are going off. I see a discrepancy like that. It's like, okay, they named this whole land after me. The center of the universe, everything we're fighting for, even till today, was
Right.
named after this guy. And yet there's nothing about him in the Bible. So there's something, again, God is saying there's something significant about him. And what I think is
Right.
that he was the forefather of the Nephilim after the flood. And again, when we think about this cosmic chess match, what does the devil do after the flood? He goes, I'm going to put my giants right where I know God wants, his land, his mountain, and
Right.
all Canaan's descendants, which is why the land is named after him, because all his descendants filled that land. And so it's called the land of Canaan. And so one, they can be traced back to him. Two, there's something interesting about Noah when it comes to him having his own children, his 3 sons. So when you look at the genealogies of the patriarchs before the flood, who were Noah's ancestors, lifespans before the flood were longer. People lived to 700, 800. Adam lived 930 years. And most men had their first child at 50 years old, 60 years old, 70 years old. And I believe that because of those prolonged lifespans, I believe people actually
But hundreds of years.
start puberty later.
Yeah.
So you're marrying and having a child much later, your first child much later.
Yes.
However, when you get to Noah, he doesn't have his first son until he's 500 years old. Now, why does that matter? He gets on the ark at the age of 600. When God appointed him to build the ark and commanded him to build the ark and told him he was going to be the person to preserve humanity, excuse me, God said, yet 120 years, and then he's going to judge humanity. So he gave humanity a 120-year probation to repent while Noah was building the ark. And if they don't repent, the flood's going to come.
That's some repenting, just building that ark. That's hard labor, man.
No freedom 55 for Noah.
No.
So how do we know that this is really 600 years and not 60 and they're just counting differently?
So I think, great question. I mean, I think one, it's said. Well, so it's a great question. I think what divides it from the lifespans we have now, the flood. After the flood, lifespans go down immediately.
Yes.
Right. So like 100 years, 130, 85, 75 years. Right. And so I believe what Scripture is telling us is that prior to the flood, I think the environment was completely different. I think the actual environment of the earth was like a hyperbaric environment, which would block UV rays, which is what actually ages us, right? 90% of aging is just caused from UV rays. And two, it promotes faster healing, right? Even athletes today will sit in hyperbaric chambers for hours when they have an injury to recover. And we're also told, there's an interesting detail in Genesis before the flood that it never rained, right? It says that there was a mist that came from the ground. So it was a very different physical environment that I believe prolonged lifespans. There's a great book by a man named Gaines Johnson. He has a great website on this where he gets, and he's a geologist, and he gets really deep into what the environment would have been like and why that could lead to a much longer lifespan. And then when you think about it too, in the millennial kingdom, right, which when Jesus is going to restore the earth, it's called the restoration. He's going to restore the environment, right? It says that the world will be like Eden again in the millennial kingdom when Jesus rules for 1,000 years on earth. And what do we see? Excuse me. Prolonged lifespans.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
That's what happens when you're talking.
Taking in air.
Yeah.
In the book of Isaiah, in reference to the millennium, it says that if someone dies at 100, they're cursed. Right. So again, why? Because the earth is now returned back to that environment where you do live to 500 again, or 700 or 1,000 years. Right. And so I think that's why it's not just like an exaggeration or metaphoric language. I believe they really did live that long, and that will happen again on earth. And so when you take into account Noah, by the time Noah had his first son, it was 20 years after God told him to build the ark and said, all flesh has corrupted itself. So then you fast forward to when his sons are adults and ready to marry a woman. The odds of finding 3 women at that point who have no Nephilim DNA is like almost impossible, because God says everything is corrupted on the earth. The animals have been hybridized. Everything is getting infected by the Nephilim DNA and the fallen angelic DNA. And when you think about Ham, who we find out later on doesn't really care about the prophecy, God, like he kind of, he commits a really bad sin with Noah in the tent. And there's lots of debate over what happened there with him. All we know is Noah was drinking, he was naked, and Ham committed a sin against him in the tent, right? But the interesting thing is, even though Ham did this to Noah, when he sobers up, and it says he knew what Ham did to him, how does he respond? He curses Canaan. He doesn't punish Ham at all. He curses Canaan, I believe, because Canaan was already showing that he had this, that he was carrying the Nephilim DNA. I think he was actually manifesting it. Now, that's my conjecture. That's not in the Bible. However, I think there's no other. I think again, I like to put evidence together, and it's like, okay, so Canaan had nothing to do with it, and he gets punished. All his descendants are the ones God specifically says to exterminate, who filled the promised land and are now, God says, the harem, the band.
It's
take them out. And I believe it's because that's how it passed through in the ark.
And just to point out, back then, even into the 16th, 17th century, people were drunk a lot because it was safer to drink wine than it was to drink water.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I wonder about
Yeah.
how many of those scriptures are just a little off. But because there was a lot of alcohol going on. I mean, my husband would be like, they were drinking a lot of vino, especially the Italians. So, the French, I mean, they drank wine for centuries because it was safe. And
The
beer,
Egyptians
yes.
had beer. Yeah.
and even Jesus, right? Jesus says, I will not drink of this till I drink it with you anew in my Father's kingdoms. I mean, it was a part of the culture, and this is real wine. It's not Welch's grape juice. This is like alcoholic
it's pure.
Wine, right? Fermented grape.
And probably really young, so it was loaded. Yeah.
So I have to ask while we're on the topic of DNA. So what do we make of because we have two blood types. We have we've got the positive blood type and the negative blood type.
Yeah.
So how would you differentiate the two? Would you consider one to be the proper lineage and one to be the Canaanite lineage? Like, how do you differentiate that?
Yeah, I don't think it's that broad. I think that the remnants of that DNA is very now in 2023 is very limited.
I had to ask because it's there. I had to ask because it's there. It's
definitely. It's a good question. What I think is where I see more of it now, right? Because the thing about too, again, is we look at the end times and today, right? Daniel chapter 2 says, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, right? So who is they? Like, there's a prophecy that in the end times, there's going to be an attempt again to mingle seed. And so where I see more of this coming back is with things we see with the UFO phenomenon.
Yeah.
Right? Even like you mentioned earlier, we were talking about conception, right? How some people even talk about
Enoch and Ezekiel talked about extraterrestrials. Jesus Christ himself talked about extraterrestrials or UFOs.
Yeah, and so I think that's where it's no coincidence that so many of the abduction accounts talk about, surgery on your reproductive organs, implanting things in women, right? Taking seed or sperm, like that's where I see
hybridization, essentially.
A lot of this, that's where to me today is where a lot of it is taking place.
Right. So Dolly made a good point also, which is true. Every 6,000 years, the planet goes through a water event or a flood. Are we nearing that time again?
Absolutely, and so
so we should be worried.
yeah. Just think about it, right? So this is more of what I cover in my second book, right? In the final Nephilim, which deals with the end times, the future. And I start off talking about in the beginning of the book what I call the scroll of time, right? That God, right, existing outside of time, that time is not linear for God. It's like a scroll where, in a scroll, like Jesus says, I am Alpha and Omega, beginning and the ending, right? He's the beginning and the ending at the same time. Like, what does that mean, right? Very confusing statement. But if you think about a scroll, the beginning of a scroll and the end of the scroll, the same thing. It's all rolled up. And so things are just repeating. And I believe that's what God does, is that he repeats events through time. And he can do that for I think he does to prove that he can tell the future, right? God uses prophecy to prove he is God, but also it's informing us because God wants us to know what's going to happen in advance. He says, I've told you everything beforehand. So you know. So in that same sense, the events of ancient history are going to repeat. It is all, I believe it's all a cycle. And I even get into a lot of quantum physics in my new book, because there's such an overlap of events in history, like what we call in the Bible types and shadows.
Right.
and these previews of future events and quantum entanglement, that things are connected through time, that similar events all affect each other. So yes, I believe it's a cycle, and yes, I believe I wouldn't be surprised to see another water event happen.
Right. Well, I think if you're, because now you have a lot of, a lot of my Christian friends will say, well, we're nearing the age of, revelations. And it just seems interesting how it ties in with potentially another flood. Just like a timing thing, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And if you think about it too, even some people even look at human history as a week, right? Because the Bible says a day with the Lord is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years in a day. And it's like,
Yes.
we're coming up with the seventh day, right? So what's going to happen, right? So
do you think we're in that 1,000 years where we have,
we're getting close? Yeah, I do think so. And what I look to when you think, because I get asked that question all the time, how close do you think we are to the end, like the real end, everything kicking off? And I actually, my perspective on that is to look at like technology, right? So John, I believe Revelation was written in probably 96 AD, somewhere around there.
Right.
And if you look at some of the things that John writes, it's really crazy things he's writing for the first century AD, right? He talks about the two witnesses who are going to preach for 3.5 years, and then they're killed. And he says that when they're killed, he says their dead bodies lay in the street for 3.5 days, and everybody on earth sees their bodies. And he wrote that in 96 AD. And up until probably 15 years ago, that wouldn't have been possible. Now everyone can just, it could just be whether you're on Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, just pick your social media app. It's very easy for 1 billion people to watch an event right now.
Right.
With the technology easily, right?
Right.
On your phones, right? And so, and of course, the mark of the beast again, right? Even 20 years ago, that wouldn't have seemed possible. Of course, now with RFID chips, we have RFID tattoos. There's numerous ways that we can track buying and selling on your body pretty easily now. And so there isn't much left that can't be achieved that's described in Revelation. So that's
what doesn't help is you have all, the faithful people who read the scriptures, but remember, some of those faithful people are in pretty high positions of power. Do you feel that perhaps events are being created to hurry this along, maybe, or to make sure certain events happen? I've always wondered about that.
Yeah, I mean, because you think about it, right? It's nothing's really changed in time, right? Like, it's like God always has like it's like the wheat and the tares. Like, God has his followers, the devil has his that are planning, and God says, let them all grow together, and I'll sort them out in the end. So there are people, I think, who want to usher in the end times events for bad reasons. I think people are praying for the return of Jesus for good reasons. So it doesn't surprise me at all. And the devil, Satan, is just an angel, right? He's not God, right? He needs people. He needs support. He needs fallen angels. He needs technology. I think he actually is going to need technology to succeed, which means he's going to need people who are working with him and who are conspiring. And again, these spirits are out here now. Angels are here among us now. We just don't see them, but they're here. They're at work. Demons are at work. So there's all these influences, inspiration. I was just saying this last week in Oklahoma City. The president, I'm like, even look at the word inspiration. It has spirit in it, right? We are, we talk about the idea that all scripture is God breathed. That's breathed. So we are breathing in all sorts and receiving frequencies, vibrations from depending on who you are aligned with. That's where you're getting your inspiration from. And it doesn't surprise me at all that there are people conspiring to usher in the end times because they have a different agenda.
Right. So when you think of a holy war, do you see this as what's going on in the planet right now, just with humankind on average, or do you think it's really like hell will arise and heaven will descend, that sort of a situation?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely see it as the latter, right? So when you think about as it was in the days of Noah, I think the biggest kind of signifying trait of that era was that what I call the veil between the human and the spirit realm was removed, right? You had in the Garden of Eden, God, Adam and Eve speak to God, right? They just talk to him.
Right.
They talk to the devil, right? The devil's like, everyone is just, everything is just open, right? So there's no barrier separating the divine from the human realm. And of course, then we see later on, angels are marrying women, having children, leading, ruling kingdoms.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that is what is going to, so I think what we're seeing now is a very small preview, like the wars we're seeing now and all those things, like what Jesus calls the birth pangs.
Mm-hmm.
This is just the warm up. I believe what we're going to see in the Great Tribulation is going to blow people's minds, because you're going to see supernatural beings openly manifesting in the earth. Like they're not going to be, there's no more invisible realm anymore. They're going to be right in front of us.
Right.
And, you know, the amazing thing is, I quote a book in my second book. I quote this book from the 2nd century, right? 2nd century by Hippolytus. It's called On Christ and Antichrist. It's the oldest writing that exists on the book of Revelation. And the amazing thing is he talks about the return of the fallen angels in Revelation chapter 12. It says that there's a war in heaven and Michael casts out, he evicts Satan and his fallen angels, and they're out forever. And then it says, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, because the devil has come upon you, because now they're here.
Mm.
And Hippolytus, you know, writing about that, he says, when he says, when those angels come, he said, they're going to be beautiful. The fallen angels. And he said, they're going to be singing beautiful hymns, floating in the sky, dazzling us with light. And then he says, and they're going to point to the Antichrist and say, like, here's your savior. And to me, that's how I see it, right? That's how I see the end times. Like, it's going to be, one, supernatural, but two, a deception like no one's ever seen before. Because I don't think they're going to come guns blazing with fangs and blood dripping and trying to kill us. They're going to come to try and fool us into saying, we're here for you. And that,
Right.
and to me, if we're going to see like the culmination, if we ever see a culmination of like the UFO phenomenon, it'd be so easy to say, yes, we're from another planet. We're here to help you evolve. We seeded you on Earth 7,000 years ago. And now we are back to make you Homo novus, Homo sapien 2.0, and all these things, right? And so I think what's going to happen in times is way beyond what we're seeing today. It's much more out of an Avengers movie than the wars we're seeing today.
Right, right. It's so fascinating, you know, that you even say this. When I was, 14 years old, my aunt had a friend who was a Catholic priest, and he was a cool priest, right? Everybody
Mhm.
loved this guy. He was young, and he was just really open-minded. And of course, my aunt was always so worried about my wild ways, meaning I was disobedient. No, I'm going to hang out with my friends. I didn't really do much more than that. But,
Yeah.
but I was defiant. So
Sure.
they had Father Don speak to me. And he said to me, clearly similarities to what you're saying. He said, do you have any questions about religion? I said, not really. I just didn't have an interest in it at all. But it's not that I didn't believe. It just was the age. I was 14, And he said, he started talking about end times. And he said, people will be fooled. Don't be fooled by all the talk of UFOs and extraterrestrials. And I'm thinking, what an odd thing to say out of nowhere, because back then I was, I was an experiencer, but I didn't have any recollection, and it was nothing that was talked about. I didn't even remember most of the time. But he also started talking about different signs that the Pope would see, that only the Pope would see, that people of faith would see and experience, and how you had to be very cautious. And then he tried to scare me. And he's like, hell will arise, heaven will descend, you have to run for cover. And I'm just going, but what if I don't run for cover? Because you really are defiant. But it was just interesting to me that you mentioned the UFO phenomena. And this is something, because I'm not going to age myself, but I'm aging myself by saying when I was 14, that's not something that you would have really spoken about. So they were obviously trained about for this very early on.
Yeah, absolutely. And trust me, that he was ahead of his time. I mean, that's to be taught, to bring that up so quickly in the context of the end times, but because now we're seeing so much, right? I mean, there's so much disclosure Congress having hearings, right? We're being prepared for some important announcement. I think, there's so many military officers saying they've seen UFOs, on a regular basis, or UAPs. And so, but I think tying it into scripture, that's what it's about. I think that I agree that it's much more of a deception, and it's much more presenting themselves as the saviors, right? At the end of the day, even the title Antichrist means substitute Christ. It's not someone who wants to just hurt Christians. He wants to replace the Messiah for Christians. That's his goal. It's all about deceiving and tricking and standing in the place. And I think even offering, right? I think even, when you look in Revelation, it says that the Antichrist, that he receives a deadly wound and is healed, that he's going to die and come back to life, right? So he's going to mimic everything about Jesus. And that in the world is like, whoa, who's like him? No one can make war with him. There's nobody like him. And if he has all these fallen angels and interstellar alien beings saying, yes, he's the one, well, what's the world going to do? They say, yeah, he's got to be the one.
Right.
And so I think that's much more what's going to take place in the end times, rather than like someone putting a gun to our head. And
Right.
saying,
No, for sure. Right. Any thoughts on who the mimic will be in this day and age? I don't want to put you in the hot seat or anything, but curiosity.
Well, I'll give you an interesting theory on his identity, since I believe he is the final Nephilim. So, which is my second book, right? So it's all about
we'll have you back on for that.
Yeah, but I do. So I'll say that, right? So what I do is, you look going back to the start of the Bible again. God told the devil about the seed of the woman, but he said, I'm going to put war between her seed and your seed. So I think literally the devil is going to have an offspring, right? And, and I believe his actual son is going to be the Antichrist, and that he will literally, just like in Genesis 6, he's going to literally, what happened, Jesus said, as it was in the days of Noah, what happened in the days of Noah, you had angels conceiving hybrid offspring. And I think that's what he's literally going to do to birth the Antichrist. So I don't know his name and who that might be, but I believe that his origin is going to be as the literal seed of the serpent.
In the movie The Omen, it's Damien. But
isn't that amazing? Isn't that right?
That film is based on the story of bringing him back. So
yeah, isn't that right? Yeah. Or Rosemary's Baby, right? These are movies. I mean, isn't that?
I can't watch that movie. It's so silly.
Yeah, right. But
I understand
the concept, right?
Yes,
that's
yes,
the concept of the film,
Devil's
right?
Advocate did a better job at it, but the same story. Yeah. And his son's perfect in every ways. Never loses a case. Nothing goes wrong. It's like,
Exactly, right. And so, and it's no coincidence that story is repeated, right? Every few years or 10 years, we get another story about some woman being selected to have the devil's child, who is the Antichrist. And I think, again, like many times, Hollywood's like ahead of the church and figuring things out, right? And I think that's where it's ultimately leading.
Right. Yeah, I believe you. Yeah. You make, because I know we're slowly inching on our time, you make reference to Jesus and the Nephilim. What did you find out about that interaction?
Yeah, so what's great is, when you study again the wars, right? So we see the Nephilim come back after the flood, and in the book of Joshua, the interesting thing, again, when you look at the little details, is when the Israelites are getting ready to go fight a war, God's commanding them, tells Joshua, be of good courage, and all these things. But when it comes to the actual battle, it is God going first. God is literally fighting the enemy Canaanite armies, and the Israelites are coming in behind him. It says the angel of the Lord. Well, I believe that is Jesus. I believe that is a reference to the pre-incarnate Jesus in the Old Testament, right? God says, we see the angel of the Lord speak to Moses at the burning bush, and 2 verses later it says, and God spoke, right? God says, I'm sending my angel. He can forgive you. Believe in him. He has the power to forgive. Only Jesus has the power to forgive. So I believe that's Jesus literally fighting and waging war against the Nephilim. And you think about it, this is another way we know this is what happened in Scripture, because every time the Nephilim are present, God like intervenes directly.
Mhm.
Whether it's the flood, the wars in Canaan, before they get to Canaan, they're fighting against King Og and King Sihon when Moses was still alive, and they say King Og's bed was 13 feet long, which means he was probably 11 to 12 feet tall, right?
Mhm.
And it says that God went and slew his armies, and then the Israelites come in and kind of just get all the people who were retreating and clean them up. And so that's why I call it Jesus Christ and the Nephilim, because Jesus is the one fighting them, right? And what I
Right.
also explain is the spirits, when a Nephilim dies, their spirit, those are the demons in the Bible, right? A demon and a fallen angel are completely different entities in Scripture.
Okay. So
And I
that's
explain
interesting.
those differences. Yeah, like when we talked about, right? Like earlier, we talked about angels having bodies, right? They eat food, they get their feet washed, all this stuff. Demons don't have bodies. They have
Right.
to go find bodies, which is why they're always trying to possess people, right? They don't have their own bodies.
Right.
Angels, even fallen angels, are always spoken of with respect, right? The Apostle Paul calls them principalities, powers. In the book of Jude, it says that the archangel Michael and the devil were arguing over Moses' body. And it said that Michael, who's an archangel, wouldn't dare make an accusation directly to the devil. He said, the Lord rebuked you. So even he respected Satan, and he's an archangel, right? And so, whereas demons are called filthy, unclean, we can just tell them, get out of this person. Like,
Oh,
right?
they're
So
potty mouths. Yeah,
But the
absolutely.
amazing thing that connects it all to Jesus is, what do we see? And in the Gospels now, when Jesus is on earth, and notice when Jesus is on earth, there's a ton of demonic activity. Demons are everywhere, right? So it's how it's going to be right before he comes back, right? The veil is getting removed when he's on earth.
Yes.
What happens when someone's possessed someone's possessed by a demon and Jesus comes? They say, you're Jesus, you're the Christ, you're the Son of God. They know who he is immediately when they see him, and they're scared to death. Why? And I always wondered that, even as a child, I'm like, how do they know who he is? They immediately say, you are the Son of God, you are the Christ. And they were like, basically, don't punish me. Have you come to punish me? Because he was the one who killed them 3,000 years earlier in the land of Canaan when Joshua had his armies there. So that's how they know who he is. They know exactly who he is. And they're scared to death of him, right? Because he was the one who killed them in the Old Testament as the angel of the Lord. And so it's just amazing that they have that. Again, the story of the Nephilim really connects all throughout the Bible, even into the New Testament.
In deliverance and exorcism, it's always the power of Christ compels you.
Amen. Right? It's the name, and right, and that name, the name of Jesus scares them. And isn't it interesting, right? When you thought, I'm so glad you brought that up, because isn't it interesting when you look at the man who's possessed by thousands of demons, right? When they said, my name is Legion, because we are many, right? Alone means thousands of men. So you have thousands of demons in him. And Jesus cast them out. And first of all, they say, it's very interesting. First, they say, don't put us in the abyss, right? Which is where the angels who fathered the Nephilim are. So they were like, don't send us where our dads are. We don't want to go to that prison. And Jesus, what does he do? He puts them in pigs, right? He casts them into swine. And what do those pigs do? They run into the water and drown. It's like a reenactment of the judgment in the days of Noah. They go and die in the water.
Now this is killing me, twisting me, because I didn't know that. And in the story of Father Gabriel Marth in the Pope's Exorcist, he casts a demon into a pig.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And it's I'm not going to say the name.
Yeah.
Okay.
I never repeat the names. I start with bits. I'm just not. I don't do that.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I don't like to give credit to anything. But
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, we'll say he's
a little bit.
He's Nephilim.
Yes.
He was Nephilim,
Yes.
obviously, you know.
He was the first of 200.
Yeah.
Like the first, yeah.
Oh,
he was
wow.
the first of 200 that Father Gabriel Morris.
I'm with you.
Yeah, he set up the School of Exorcism at the Vatican.
In the movie, they use that name?
They use the name, and I'm like, this is
Wow,
Hollywood.
wow.
This is
So they really
Hollywood.
know. Wow,
But
wow.
what you
And
find,
that's why I said to Michelle, I'm dying to go back to his book
you
to
have
see
to
if
go
he
back
says
and read
anything
it.
there, or if it's just something Hollywood put there. But
No,
he
but if you
talks
think
about the
about it,
200.
that same being has been through history. He was the one who fooled Solomon.
Mm.
He was the one who sits at the entrance of a church in the south of France. There's a statue of him. Like,
Wow.
there's a
Michelle
very
has a photo with him.
significant in all of that, you know, like they're key players through history and through
Yep.
time and through lineages, and it's fascinating. But one last question: there is a theory. It is talked about by some theologians and people who find the study of, or the research of the demonic or the fallen ones, especially the fallen ones. Do you think there's any remorse? Because there's a belief that there is remorse, and some of them do wish to find a way back.
Yeah, sure. So, I kind of talk about this. And the way I talk about it is like, right, when we talk about the sin nature, right, that we have this sin nature in us. And, the Bible says something really fascinating, right, that we actually inherit it, right? It says, in Adam all die, that we literally are inheriting this propensity for sin in our flesh genetically, right?
Mhm.
And so, and I think that's exactly what the Bible's saying, that it's literally passed on in our flesh, this desire to be wicked in every human being.
I'm
right?
going to use that at next confession. Just saying. I'm kidding.
And
Can
so,
you imagine? But Father.
and so, and what I say is like, because why are the Nephilim so evil, right? Like, why are they so bad? Because God, if you look at the world before the flood, it says it's filled with violence. There's war everywhere. And I believe that in a fallen angel, when they fall and they become flesh, because it says man also is flesh, that their spirit that gets corrupted and depraved is way worse than ours, because they're more powerful than us. And so I think that's why the Nephilim were so evil. And when you think about it too, as we became more corrupted with Nephilim genetics in the days of Noah, look what it says. There's an interesting statement in Genesis 6. It says that the thoughts of man were only evil continually. I mean, think about that. 24. I mean, think about like for example, for me, I love good food. I love sports. Like there are lots of things I think about that aren't godly, but they're not evil either. Right.
Right.
And so it's like, but thinking about 24/7, you're just thinking about hurting somebody, stealing something, robbing, something bad. Like that's a really powerful statement. And so I think that it's I would submit that it's way harder for an angel to feel remorse than a human being.
Right.
And then you look at the one example we have, the devil just doesn't stop.
So they gave away narcissism at the gates.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And still thinks he's going to win, right? Till now, still thinks he's going to win at the end of the day and rule heaven and earth. And so I think it's much harder. I think their nature,
the king of all narcissists,
because they're the offspring. They have like a double sin nature.
Right. Well, because I mean, they were they're close to God.
I'm sorry?
They're so close to God,
Exactly.
All loving.
Well, Lucifer was his favorite. He was very disappointed in him. He was his favorite. That's why he named him Lucifer. He named him Light, which is Luce. So
Right. So we're there. We went longer just for you because we had to do this.
Okay. It's all good.
So
thank you for being here.
Tell us where to find your book.
Yes,
where can they purchase it?
Nephilim. Thanks for putting the cover up.
I just can't get this.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. At judgmentofthenephilim.com, which is my website. You can find my books there. I have study guides for the books. I do lots of research. So people came to me at conferences and said, you got to make study guides. So if you want to get deep into the content or study with your church or your small group or alone, you have that. And then if you want to get the book in a night, I have documentaries on both books. So Judgment of the Nephilim, Secrets of the Pre-Flood World, and the Final Nephilim Battle for Heaven and Earth, which are on digital on demand and in DVD. It's also on Amazon. And then all my socials, my Instagram, my Facebook, my YouTube channel are all Judgment of the Nephilim, one word.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Beautiful cover.
Thank you.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
for coming on and joining us, and still got a good amount of time in there, thankfully. But I will be in
Yes.
touch with you because I would like to invite you back on both of our behalfs to talk about the second book and do a full 2-hour segment on that.
That'd be great. I would love to come back on. You ladies will get me for the full 2 hours. I promise we'll make it happen. Yes.
No,
Sure.
I love it. I love it.
And tell your wife thank you for letting you go for an hour unexpectedly
Yeah, I
to
will.
us.
I
We're
will.
sorry that we interrupted, but
No,
thank you.
it's all good. It's all good. This is great. This is great. I really appreciate this. Is an awesome program. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Oh, pleasure.
Thank you. You've
Thank
been
you.
wonderful.
So I will be in touch.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Take care. Have a great
Thanks.
night.
You two have a great
Thank you.
weekend.
Good
See you.
night.
Good night.
Well, that is the end of an extra long segment of the Outer Realm, and boy, it was interesting topic of conversation, and I would love to get into part 2 because it gets into stuff that's going on today. We may actually have to go to private mode for that.
I think so.
Potentially.
Yeah.
But anyway, so thanks to everybody who hung in with us. Part 1 was an interesting open mic. Part 2, of course, was Ryan Pitterson, who was speaking, of course, about his book, the Judgment of the Nephilim. The next book is The Final Nephilim. So that's going to be super interesting as well. So look it up. In the meantime, go to Amazon or go to his website and get the book. It's sounds like it's full of twists and turns and a lot of fun.
A lot of information in there.
Yeah. So big thank you to Folgers Coffee for sponsoring the show. Big thank you to Dr. Snick, aka Justin Snicker. Big thank you to Steve McGinnis. We appreciate you all so much. I am tongue-tied and tired. I appreciate each and every one of you, as I know Amelia does. We love seeing you in chat. You make the show that much more fun and interactive, which is very important to us. So thank you. Tomorrow night, we're going to have fun with this one, Bubbles. Tomorrow night, we welcome for the very first time Pat O'Connell. She's going to be talking about her book called Bleed Through, a true story of aliens, demons, and pure evil in Texas.
There you go.
So it's a true story with a twist so shocking you'll never see it coming. For 3 years, Texas aircraft repair shop owner Clay Wheeler witnessed an array of paranormal phenomenon at Sparks County Airport that make the events at, catch this, Utah Skinwalker Ranch pale by comparison.
Oh my goodness.
Including UFOs, aliens, poltergeist, demonic possession, and plain old murder.
A lot of airports.
I know.
Bring that up with her tomorrow.
Right?
A lot of airports.
A team is forming to finish the investigation and find out what, if any, evidence is really buried out there. It's got everything. So excellent for Spooky Month. So guys, thank you for tuning in, and we shall see you tomorrow night. Good night.